What's up everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Samples Family Reptiles. I know I've been away for a little bit and I apologize, man, between work and to be honest with you, I've got a new surprise coming in, so I've been super busy with trying to get some things together and get that all in order. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and all right, let's just kick it off. Today we're going to be talking about a monitor that I've got coming in the next couple of days. What it takes to set up for the monitor, or at least what I've done. And all this information that I'm giving you is purely off of research and then my firsthand experience. So it's up for debate. It could be right, it could be wrong. Purely do what you feel is best. But for me, this is what works, and so I'm going to let y'all know. So I got a water monitor coming in. He's already 3 foot long. So at that point in time, it's about ready to, add them to or put them in their forever home. Luckily, I've got a monitor that's not going to get too big, but he is already 3 foot. So that being said, I wanted to build something sizable, something that would last me, like I said, for a while, if not his entire lifespan. And in doing that, I have to whoever's doing building such an enclosure really needs to pay attention to what it takes to build a forever enclosure. Unless you're going to go out and pay, $8 to maybe $10,000 to have one custom built for you. It's about paying attention to the details. So today, I'm just going to kind of explain what it is that I've got going on. Now, unfortunately, I was asked to do this video about my enclosure a little late, as I've already been in the process of building, and I'm already to the part where I'm going to be doing epoxy, which I'll explain later in the video as to why I'm going to be doing that. So for now, what you see in the background is the enclosure that I've got going on. All I did to start with was go purchase a display center or a entertainment center. Now, the one I purchased would hold up to a 65-inch flat screen TV and was adjustable in the middle. And unfortunately, I, like everybody else, understand that most of that stuff is particle board or particle wood, so adding moisture to it at all is not the best idea because you're going to rot it out. It's going to be done within a year or so, especially if you're using a misting system. And in the case of a water monitor, using that for sidewalls and such like that, it's just a bad idea because there's going to be moisture everywhere and you're going to eventually rot it out. However, I started doing some research because I really liked the way this thing looked and I wanted to take it seriously and get an enclosure built out of it. So after all my research, I figured out what I could do. And this is, well, about 100 steps into the process, but step one of setting up for the water monitor is making sure that your enclosure and husbandry is dialed in. Now, sometimes that's hard to do. With all of us keepers, we're all going to, if we're upfront and honest, every one of us are going to tell you that, man, it's trial and error. We are all constantly adjusting things to make sure our animals or our reptiles, especially the monitor people within the monitor community, would definitely agree with this, that we are always changing to make sure our monitors are happy and healthy. So I will probably have some things that will eventually get changed on this or moved around, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with what's going on. Like I said, I took a huge entertainment center. The centerpiece you see right here was actually about 2.5 foot wider on each side, and I cut it down along with this crown molding right here. It actually came out to about right here and at a 45-degree angle. And I only wanted 8 foot worth of length from end to end. So to get that, I had to cut the center section down some. I had to trim out the molding quite a bit. I cut about 6 inches off the molding. If you can't tell, man, this thing is 8 foot wide by 3.5 foot deep by 7 foot tall, and the interior alone is right at 5.5 foot tall. Now, my guy being here, that he's going to be coming in, and I'll need some acclimation time, so to be quite honest with you, I'm going to close off my right side tower for now, and he'll just be within these two, but that'll also be explained later. So what I've got going on right now is I knocked out the back side of the original or the original backside of the entertainment center for good purpose. It's that thin, crappy, it might as well be cardboard. I mean, it's no good for anything else but to be flimsy and look decorative. I got rid of that, and I went to 3/4 inch plywood. And the reason I went to 3/4 inch plywood is because it's a monitor, man. Gotta have some climbing objects, and anything smaller, especially with the size of the enclosure, I mean, I could have gone down to 1/2 inch and I still would have held a good amount of weight, which is why I went with the 3/4, because that way when I mount stuff to it, I don't have to worry about it falling apart or not holding. The same thing with my walls. I mean, you relatively can barely see, but I'll tell you this, all this framing right here and up above, I've got that goes throughout the entire enclosure. Back through the middles, down the sides. You can even see it over here in this tower in the back corner. I did that for purposes of being able to mount not only my back to, but other things as I'm going through. I've got places to screw stuff in that won't be going directly into particle board or particle wood, cabinet wood, whatever you want to call it. I'm very lucky with the fact that the doors that are on this, that came with the towers anyway. There was nothing in the center, obviously, because the TV would have sat there. But the doors are glass and they're solid oak. So I'll just be prepping the back side of those to hit with epoxy, which again, I'll explain here in just a little bit. So what I used, man, I used 1x2s, 2x6s, 2x4s, and only a few 2x4s. I did quite a bit of the framing out of 1x2s. And quite a bit of it out of 1x6s. I think I own, or 2x6s, sorry. I think I only used 2x4s in this specific section just to build this second level. Now I know looking at it from here, you can kind of see in the video camera, you can kind of see that I have holes. This is a, I guess, multi-level, multi-chamber enclosure, what it will turn out to be. I built this ledge, and what it will eventually be is I've got some tracks that'll be here tomorrow for sliding glass doors right here in the front. These will be swing open doors with latches and glass fronts. The sides are completely closed in because I don't want him to see to the sides or behind and be spooked any more than what he's going to see from front traffic coming in front. Anyway, what you can't really see in the camera without me having to pick it up and move it and jar around the whole visual here is that I've got holes. And I've got not just holes, but I've got holes everywhere. And this is so he can go in and out at all times wherever he wants. And you can barely see a little bit of it back here, and I'll let him pick it up and show you. But I've got a water tub built down into the enclosure. And down here at in this hole at the bottom, I'm actually going to build a PVC drain pipe that'll come out and drop down to from a 2-inch drain down to 2-inch pipe to a 1-inch pipe, and then out on an off valve, 1-inch on and off valve. And I'm doing that specifically so that I don't have to try and scoop or suction the water out every time I want to change it. These guys are going to need it daily, as monitors, water monitors in particular, defecate in their water all the time. As a matter of fact, that's more than likely where you're going to find a water monitor defecating. So it needs changed daily. The best way to do that, man, without having to scoop it or suck it out, I thought was to put a drain in there and to put a sizable drain. That's why I went with a 2-inch. That way I knew whatever was in the water was going to flow down that drain. And it'll be real simple. Open the drain up, drain it all out into a bucket of some sort, go throw it out wherever I'm going to throw it. In my case, it'll be my backyard, or, you know, it's water with some dirt and some crap in it, no different than my dogs do, so no big deal. I will say that I did it this way with the valve so that when I dumped it, I didn't have residual water sitting in there that I was going to have to wipe out before I could clean it. The great thing about this is I can drain it all out, reach in there, wipe it all clean with a rag or some wipeout spray, which is reptile safe, and then fill it with water again while the drain's still open and drain with fresh water the drain. Flush the drain out. Close the drain off, fill it all back up with water, and voila. Done daily, takes about 3 minutes. Another thing that you've noticed that I've already got going on is it's taped off. Again, that's for epoxy. Man, I've really got a lot of time and effort into this. I will say it actually took a lot longer to do than what I anticipated. And a lot of that has to do with, I had it in my head exactly what I was going to do. And exactly what you see was relatively exactly what I had in my head. But I didn't have in my head all the bracing it would need. I didn't have in my head the time it would take to do all of it properly. And when I say properly, I don't just mean cut, stick a hole, or make a cut, put a nail through, or a screw through. I went through and sanded every little piece I cut before any of it went together. And I did that with 100 grit and then went to 220 immediately. Sanded everything baby smooth, because a lot of the wood that you get or that you buy is going to be rough. Even if you get double sanded, it's still got a texture, and nobody really likes the textured wood. So I sanded it all down baby smooth. And then before I put it all back together, after going baby smooth, I went and roughed it up with 60 grit. And I'll explain why here in just a little bit. Every place there is a screw here on this enclosure. Every place there are pre-drilled pilot holes. And I did that so that I would not split any wood anywhere, regardless of where I put a screw. One thing I did run into that I had to do a couple hole fillers for was drilling into an emptiness from the backside, putting it at the back, or drilling it into an emptiness, or drilling it into a screw. I went through two drill bits before I finally got the third one in and finished the job. But I'm telling you, out of like 500 screws, because there's a lot. I mean, it is solid, and it's not going nowhere. I guarantee this thing weighs somewhere currently around 1,000 pounds. Each tower, y'all, was 220 pounds. Just the tower, without anything in it, without any other bracing. So the top piece alone, 100 pounds before I cut it down, of course. So it's probably around 60, 65. But I added in a ton of wood. So this thing will definitely not go anywhere. And to be honest with you, this monitor will never, ever break out or scratch through or chew his way through. Or I currently, as many of you know, if you've watched my videos before, I have 2 Melinus monitors, and they are Houdinis. So with this one, I made extra sure that wherever I was putting a hole, he is not going to get to. Now, as I'm saying this framing that I have is squared off up underneath here on each spot. Now, I've got incandescent lightings. I've got 4, 1 in each tower, 2 in the center. These are going to hold my UVB bulbs. Spiral incandescent. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. I've been watching a lot of videos from Corey at Toothless, and this is what he recommends. And the dude's a superb keeper and breeder, so I'll take his advice. And shout out to you, Corey at Toothless. Anyway, so I'm going to put the incandescent spiral 100 UVBs in here. I also cut out 5-inch holes. All I did was take a 4 3/8 inch recessed lighting hole saw, and I knocked the hole out. And then I took my jigsaw and cut a 1/4 inch more all the way around, right at 5 inches. The great thing about this is that most of your fixtures are 5.5 inches at the bell, which means you're right at about 5 inches or a little more on the actual fixture itself, on the cone of the fixture. The way I cut these, it actually worked out perfect. I was real worried about what it was going to take to recess them up in and hold them from the top without having to epoxy them in or glue them in, just in case I ever needed to replace them. The great thing about the way I cut these, and I still, as I said, things may change. I will have to wait till heat gets added to it and see how they act. But the size that I cut the holes, my fixture goes up in, and I can push it up in about 1/2 inch, and it's good. Now, you may say, you don't want to do that because what if he pulls it down? Or what if your monitor gets up at the top and pulls the light down? Good point. Very valid point. And I also thought about that. I was like, man, I've got all this lighting that's going to go in here, all these ceramic heaters that are going to go in here, because each of the 5-inch holes are holding fixtures that are going to have ceramic heat bulbs. I'm going to have a 200 watt in the middle for basking area, and then I'll have 50s on each tower just to keep some ambient heat within the enclosure. I've also got 1, 2, and 3 tiny little holes for my misting system to go down through so that I can keep a daily mist. 1 spray down a day ought to be good, help the humidity stay within there. And the great thing about doing epoxy like I'm going to do, which again, I'll explain here in a little bit, is that it helps hold all the moisture inside the enclosure. And guys, heat and moisture does what? Creates humidity. Well, these guys need high humidity levels, so this will be perfect. Again, what you may be wondering about the lights, which you would be right to think, well, what if he gets down there and pulls them down? The great thing about that is I'm actually, well, I've already built them, but they'll be getting epoxied at the same time. I built frames with hinge systems and chicken wire, 1/4-inch chicken wire. Not even my little younglings, my little hatchlings could get through that, so I would never have to worry about anybody getting to the light. What's gonna happen is I built the frame, and I built it to sit an inch down. Okay, just an inch down. And I've pancaked them like this, not sideways, but flat. That way, I built a frame, put the chicken wire down, attached the chicken wire to the frame. Then I built another frame and put it right down on top of it. That way the chicken wire is smashed in between, and my monitor can't get to any sharp edges and hurt himself or chew the edges of the mesh off. From that point, I'm adding a locking system, just a little slide latch in the front. I've already drilled a hole, and I've got hinges. And so what'll happen is if I ever need to change a light, this will actually go up in here to protect him from getting the lights. And if I ever need to change it, I'll have hinges on the back and a lock right here, unlatch it, and this will drop down. I'm actually gonna do this, like I said, I've got them built, just have to put them in after epoxy as well. I've done this in each tower over every set of lights. That way, I didn't have to worry about him, like I said, getting to the lights, getting burnt by being able to get up too close to them, or by pulling them down. And to be completely honest with you, my incandescent recess, you couldn't push the metal fixture out through the middle, but you could definitely push those out. And let's say he gets jolly and decides to try and go through there. Well, to be honest with you, at the size he is right now, which is 3 foot, the guy that's going to go in here, those holes are big enough where he'd go right through it. So, that's why I'm doing the chicken wire and framing. Keep him from being able to get out and keep him from being able to get to my lights. That's what I'm talking about. Another thing that I got going on, I got storage at the bottom. I didn't touch those. And this whole project has gone relatively well. Everything will be set up on a timer system. All my lights and everything will go on at the same time. Heat will stay on in the towers 24/7. The basking temp or the basking heat will turn off on a 14-10, 14 hours on, 10 hours off. And my UVBs will stay on a 14-10 as well, 14 hours on, 10 hours off. I mean, I can't even really explain to you what it is that I've done as far as building. I mean, it would have been much better if I could have started this process from the very beginning, where you could have seen step by step by step, every cut, every hole drilled, all the sanding that was gone into them. Man, look, I'm a proprietor of nice things and like to have nice things. So I figured if I was going to build something big, which it's got to be big to house a big monitor, I wanted it to look elegant. I wanted it to look professional. I wanted it to look awe-striking. You know what I mean? Like if I walked into somebody's house and saw this and I didn't do it myself, or at least a finished project for what it will look like. And even right now, if somebody told me, hey, I'm in the process of building this enclosure for a monitor, Lizard, what do you think? Dude, I would be like, you need to come to my house and build this. Fortunately, I'm the one building it here at my house. But what I'm getting at is that I want somebody, if somebody's going to come over here and see one of my animals, I don't want them to walk in and see my enclosure and be like, yo, that's rickety. Like, especially if they know something about the reptile that, or in my specific instance, my monitor, especially if they know something about them. Somebody in the monitor community, which, guys, I already know, you've all got your nitpickiness in the first place. You're all going to gripe. I'm sure eventually somebody's going to tell me what I did wrong with this one without me having the opportunity to do so myself. I don't care. I don't care. You want to do it better? Come here and do it for me. I'll tell you right now, I've got about 150 hours invested in this so far, and I haven't even started the 3 days worth of epoxy yet. What I'm getting at is that for me, when somebody comes over here, I want all my enclosures to look great. All of them to look excellent. I want all my animals to look happy and healthy and non-stressed, which, if you're involved in the monitor community, you understand that stress is a part of their life. We're big compared to them, so we're predatory animals to them. So they're always stressed. Dogs running in front of the enclosure, stress them out. Fast movement in front of the enclosure, stress them out. Doesn't matter. Now, you can work that out of them down the road as far as the movement in front of the enclosure and the taking them in and out and stressing them. And I know some people that throw them over their shoulder and drive down the road like crazy. I wouldn't try to do that, but at least not right now. But I mean, you know what I mean? There's, at some point, every monitor keeps stressing its life. So I just want my enclosures to be the best they can be. If you're like me and you put effort into this and you pay attention to the small details, and when I mean small details, I'm meaning like the pre-drilling every hole. I will tell you this, I did not draw these plans up and just make a bunch of cuts and hope everything fit together. I started actually with my towers and I gutted them out, cut all the holes, and then I cut that top piece up there so that the two towers in my empty space were correct. After that, I started with my water section, built that, and went from there. Now, when I say built it, I'm talking I cut 2 pieces of wood the exact same length, another 2 pieces of wood the exact same length, made a square, took measurements off of that, and went. Every piece of wood on here, and I do mean every piece, and usually in pairs because I've got 2 sides of everything. So at minimum pairs. There's not one piece on here except for maybe the ledging and this plywood that didn't come in pairs. Hell, even my back pieces are 2 pieces of plywood. If it was a pair piece and both my measurements were the same, which they were, then I would cut 2 pieces. But let's say I cut this piece right here and the piece along the back. I did not cut these pieces along the side as far as framing goes. I did not cut those at the same time I did these. I cut these. I came in here and pre-fit them to make sure they would fit. Then I drilled the holes, put the piece back up here, drilled through the holes into the top section, then put my screws through and did the same thing in the back. Then I took measurements of my side pieces. And guys, I did this throughout the entire build. Some people say it's overkill. For me, it was making sure that every piece fit gap-free. Why gap-free? Well, because I'm using particle board, or particle wood and real wood, and there's already, because of the particle board and the towers, there's already going to be certain gaps from their bracing. So, the less gaps, the less possibility of moisture. Now again, the least amount of gaps also plays into the fact that when I epoxy it, that's less I have to worry about being on top of. That's less small spaces. And you got to seal it off. Yeah, you know what I mean? So the least gaps amount possible, the better. Let's see, what else? I got a door being made for the front. I have a friend that's gonna come over because I honestly have never done this before. I did everything you see behind me. I have done it to a T by myself. But there are some things that I don't know, such as veneer. I understand that that's a type of veneer on top of particle board. I can buy, and I plan to actually purchase pieces of actual veneer and then another couple pieces of oak to build the bottom section down here to match the rest of this, and I can stain it off and it'll look 100% the same the whole way around. Same grain, same wood textures, everything. And those guys are the details that I'm talking about, because yeah, you can go buy stain that would match this. You know, it's gun stock. And it's cheap. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't need but a little jar. But the grain texturing in this pine compared to the grain texturing in that oak are two different things. So the look, once it's stained, even if you came close to matching perfect color, the texturing would be all off and it would throw the piece off completely. So when it's all said and done with, and these are things that I can do even after he's here, because I can stain the veneer and all the pieces before and then pre-drill and zip it all in while he's still inside, since it's all down below. But what I'm getting at is those are some of the tiny details to pay attention to when wanting to build to perfection. And if you're going through the effort like I am to do something like this, my God, why not take the extra time to do it correctly and make sure it's perfection? Because you got a lot of time and money invested. Granted, I got the two towers and that top piece, granted, for 150 bucks. And it had a separate section at the bottom down here, but I took it out and trashed it because it wasn't worth nothing and it was all particle wood anyway. I didn't want to use it. But besides that, I got, I don't know, around $1,000 so far tied up into this. Now, while that sounds like a lot of money, go out and buy this enclosure, because you can, customcages.com. You can go out and buy one that looks almost identical. $9,000. $9,000, y'all. That's a lot of money. Worth it? Sure, it's worth it, because you're buying something that's pre-built. It's going to come to your house and you can stick your animal right into it. But where's the pride in that? Oh, I got money to go buy. But no, I wanted to build. There's my pride in that. I wanted to do it myself. This, to me, for my seller that I'm buying my monitor from, this isn't just for me, this is for him. And shout out to Derek McKinley with Addiction Reptiles, my good buddy now, and also the guy I'm buying this water monitor from. This is for him just the same, not just for me. When people like what I'm trying to do and trying to be, when we put our efforts into our enclosures like this, guys, it tells the sellers that we're serious, that we have a firm investment in this, you know, or in this animal, and that we're taking the purchase, care, and longevity of this animal 100% seriously. If your seller's like my friend, he's like, man, he's like, I appreciate that. You know, you don't have to go all out. But for me, I do. Because for me, I don't want him to second guess anything. Second guess the sell, second guess the care, second guess nothing. I'll tell you right now that I will have forest floor, again, regards and courtesy of Corey at Toothless Reptiles. I will have forest floor substrate in the bottom of these towers, and then surrounding my water tub on that side. I will not put forest floor up in the top sections. I take that back. I may actually do it in that one. I've got aggregate stoppers coming in, like 4-inch tall plexiglass aggregate stoppers that I'll put in to accommodate for that. But what I will say is that I'm getting slate stone. Why am I going with slate stone? Well, water monitors don't bask under light. The UVB is great for them. Yes, don't get me wrong. But they bask in the heat. So as a water monitor, they don't need a lighted heat source. So what I've done, or what I'm going to do, again, like what I said, is the ceramic heat bulbs. 200 in the middle, sitting right over a 1 to 2 inch thick slab of slate stone that is relatively going to cover this entire area. I will probably have a little forest floor substrate down around the rock for it to sit on and around. But again, the reason I'm going with slate is because it holds heat. It's a heat retaining rock and heat emitting rock. So what I'm getting at is, if my dude doesn't go up there for 8 hours and that heat's been blasting on that rock, that slate, for 8 hours, that he hasn't been on top of it, when that light goes out after 8 hours, or however many hours he's, let's say it goes out after 8 hours of him not being on it, all night that slate's gonna hold that heat. And it'll allow him to go over and lay on it and bask on it and thermoregulate properly. Again, thank you to Corey at Toothless Reptiles for that advice. Man, I'll tell you right now, I have had the heckest of a time trying to find slate stone. But I did. I finally found some. Actually, one of my buddies, who's the same guy that's going to help me come over and help me do the veneering and the staining, has a ton of it. Because here in Oklahoma, where I am, there's no place local that deals in slate stone. And guys, to tell you why I'm going all out on an enclosure like this with the misting system and all that, and it's so freakishly enclosed, is because I live here in Oklahoma, where one day it could be 90 degrees with 80% humidity outside. The next day it could be 32 degrees and we have a chance of snow. And the day after that, it could be 67 degrees with a tornado running through here. Or we could get all of those on one day, and that has legitimately been happening over the last couple of weeks. And for the last couple of months, we have had to deal with just horrible weather. Like it's pouring rain right now. So having outdoor enclosures for reptiles here in Oklahoma isn't suitable. Maybe during the summer months of the year where it gets stupid hot and you could go out and put your animals on outdoor enclosures to soak up, vitamin D and get some outside time in a non-threatening environment, in an escape-proof enclosure outside, then by all means go for it. I actually plan to do the exact same thing, but I can't house them 100% of the time outside. Weather here in Oklahoma just will not allow for that. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of an explanation of what I got going on. And one of the reasons I haven't been posting any updates lately, I've had a ton of time going into this. My guy will be here a couple days, so really got to get on the ball with this. So yeah, I appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'm actually going to go ahead and give you a slow walkthrough of the enclosure. If I can get my camera off the stand. So while we're sitting here talking, let's see. This is left side tower. Now this is open because I've got a pull-out drawer on this side. But this is what I'm meaning about the framing. And this is what I'm meaning about my incandescent recessed lights, and then the 5.5 inch or 5 inch hole that I've actually got cut out. This is the framing I'm talking about that I'm going to use to put my screens in to drop down. So you can see there's a hole going up to the top. And I know this all looks really bare right now, guys, but I will, of course, have tons of climbing in objects throughout for him to get in and out of. Another framed off area. These doors that I have going right here, I'm actually going to seal off completely where they don't open. But this one, and then I've got sliding glass doors being built for this. This is my water tub. I currently have it loose in here right now because I still need to do the drain, and I've got to take it out to do epoxy. But that's it. I mean, that's what we're working with, guys. It's taken me a little while to get to this point, but has been worth it. And yeah, I appreciate y'all sticking in and sticking around for what I apologize being a 35-minute video. Stay tuned, subscribe and like if you like my channel and like my videos. Leave a comment if you got any questions or you have any advice, man. I'm still just like any other reptile owner. We should be willing to learn all the time. So I'm in that phase of soaking up everything I have. So if you see this video and you have tips, let me know. I could use them or not. I'll do it myself. But if you have good tips, I will definitely take them to heart and consider them, because why not? So I appreciate it, guys. Stay tuned, and we'll talk about epoxy in the next video. Deuces.